Good evening, and welcome to the first film of this two-day marathon and to the very first public program with Isabel Coixet here at NYU. My name is Marina Garde, and I'm the Assistant Director of Espacio de Culturas, a cultural center dedicated to highlighting the cultures of Spain and the Spanish-speaking world. On behalf of our entire team, I want to extend a very warm welcome to all of you in celebration of our fall semester chair in Spanish culture and civilization, Isabel Coixet. Each academic year, our center hosts two chairs, remarkable figures from different fields, who each spend a semester at NYU teaching a graduate seminar and sharing their work with the public through public programs like this one. The chairs are nominated by faculty and approved by our advisory board. And I would especially like to thank Julia Solomonoff from Graduate Film for nominating Isabel Coixet and for working with us so closely to make her semester here a success. Thank you, Julia. What a gift to have Isabel with us. I've been eagerly anticipating Isabel's time here. She is one of the most prolific Spanish film directors with 14 feature films and 7 documentaries. She has received 10 Goya Awards, more than any other woman director in Spanish history. She's been honored. And she's been honored with Spain's National Cinematography Award, and the French Ministry of Culture awarded her with the Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres medal. Yet, Isabel is so much more than her awards. Over the past 3 weeks here with us, she has shared not only her brilliance and creativity, but also her integrity, her thoughtful listening, and her care for the world, from human rights and democracy to the environment, the power of thought, the power of food, and even the care she has shown to all of us on the team. I'm sure you will sense all of that in the film marathon that it's about to unfold. I would also like to invite you to join us through the semester for a series of 3 films selected by Isabel, in which she and her invited guests will share their ideas about intimacy in film, which is also the theme for her graduate seminar. The first screening in the series is Slow with Marija Zarache, who will be joining Isabel for the screening on Wednesday, October the 8th. So, this evening, we will watch her film, Un Amor, which is part of the Spanish Embassy initiative Spanish Cinema Now Plus, dedicated to celebrating contemporary Spanish cinema. The screening will follow with a conversation between Coixet and filmmaker Professor Solomonoff. But first, it is my pleasure to introduce Pedro Calvo Sotelo, Consul for Cultural Affairs, who will offer a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina, and thank you, Jordana, for your invitation. Buenas tardes, good evening. Amigos todos de Espacio de Culturas, amigas todas también de Isabel Coixet. I think, and we have been listening, people screaming, that we share today 3 joys. Espacio de Cultura, the joy of having Isabel Coixet. Let me say that she's not only a filmmaker, she's also a woman of letters. She writes a lot. She's a woman of literature. I follow you, Isabel, in your weekly articles in a wonderful Spanish cultural supplement called XL Semanal. So she's in the filmmaking, but she's also in literature. The second joy is that we share is all of us here who are not your students, but we are invited by Espacio de Culturas to all this beautiful program. And we are very happy to be here. And I can speak on behalf of the Embassy of Spain in Washington that we are also very happy to contribute to these sessions here and to your semester in New York. And if I may say, the third joy is yours. If I have the intuition that for a filmmaker and someone who is in literature, to be in New York for a semester is something that makes you very happy. I can imagine that. I'm very happy also in New York. Let me quote, let me say that, of course, New York is the origin of cinema in somehow with Edison, and is also the origin of, is the most cinematographic city of the world. Walt Whitman, who was dying when the cinema came, but has the intuition to say the true reality is in images. Images are the true reality. He was also fascinated by the city. And then when someone is a genius, comes history and gives him reason. Because the most important, maybe, vanguardist film in the history of New York, Manhattan, by Strand and Schiller, was based in the work of Walt Whitman. I say that because Isabel is the two things. She speaks, or she tells us her world in cinema and also through words. And I finish saying that this vanguardism of the cinema in New York was maybe also recreated in Spain as in no other country in Europe at that time. In the 20s and in the 30s, especially in the Generación del 27 and others, they were making together this poetry, literature, and film. And I talk about three people that were here in New York: García Lorca, Salvador Dalí, and Luis Buñuel. Salvador Dalí said to Paul Valéry, and it seems that he was answering Walt Whitman, he said to Paul Valéry, Buster Keaton is pure poetry. Take note of that. So these three joys, and this last joy that I, so to say, take from what my intuition is from Isabel. I just wanted to say to Isabel that we're very happy to have you here and to share with you this joy of following all this program. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for being here. And yeah. You know, I think that I'm kind of an okay director, but as a person introducing films, I think I'm the worst. I have to say, when Julia asked me why you want to start all these movies with Un Amor, and I said because it's my most difficult and strange movie, and I thought, you know, if they pass the test, then they can watch the others. So I just want to say thanks for everybody who made this thing possible, and just one thing, you know, next time, if it's possible, the white wine very cold, because it's very important. And I warn you, this is not like a feel good film. It's not gonna make you feel bad, you know, but it's not a feel good film. I know some people here, they have seen other films of mine. They have seen The Bookshop, who's, you know, is a sad, arty kind of preppy film. This is not that kind of film. This is heavy duty. So good luck, and and we, you know, we can answer. I guess the good thing of this film is that they will make you ask me questions. So later we will have a, you know, we'll talk a little bit about the film, and I don't want to say enjoy because that's not the. You're warned. Thank you.
Ya viste cómo estaba todo. Esto no es una casa rural con encanto y gilipolleces de esas que ya te lo dije, ¿te acuerdas? ¿Por qué aquí?
¿Por qué no? Ven. Sí, eso, ven. Tú eres Andreas, ¿no?
¿Y tú, Nat?
Aquí todo el mundo sabe todo de todo el mundo.
Yo soy Carlos.
Entonces, ¿no? Que somos vecinos.
Se te volverá a inundar todo cada vez que llueva. No quiero que te enfades. Estás en tu derecho de enfadarte, es un riesgo que corro. Las goteras van a ir a más. Yo puedo arreglarte el tejado a cambio de que me dejes entrar en ti un rato.
Soy yo, ¿cómo podría ser otra?
Podrías haber sido otra y yo también podría haber sido otro. Estás guapa hoy.
He previsto llevarlo a tu casa.
Prohibir es una palabra muy fuerte.
¿Quieres pasar la noche aquí conmigo?
Le das muchas vueltas a todas las cosas. Tú te crees con derecho a juzgar, pero no tienes ni idea de nada.
Tú no me conoces. No me conoces nada, no me conoces nada, no me conoces nada.
¿Es eso que hay? ¿Es eso qué?
¿En qué piensas cuando estás conmigo?
Well, I see you survive, huh?
She warned you. Thanks for staying. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Isabel. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to say a couple of things about Isabel for those who... I kind of feel like everybody here knows who Isabel Coixet is, and Marina did a great job at presenting her. But I'm going to say a couple of things that are unofficial, besides shooting 14 features and documentaries and TV series and writing for El País and having a podcast and doing collages that were just shown at the Thyssen Museum in Madrid. She is an incredible mentor. She's a very generous woman who has been supporting many filmmakers. I am one of the filmmakers that she has helped throughout her career. She's a writer-director. A lot of her films she wrote and directed. She has directed in Spanish, English, Italian, French, Japanese.
Yeah, I can speak everything, but really bad.
Well, she reads in all the languages except for of Japanese, I think. For Japanese.
It will give me time.
Okay. And one of the things that for me are always very, and she does, her own original work, and she's great with adaptations. This film is an adaptation. The film she mentioned before, very different from this one, but very connected in a way. The Bookshop is also an adaptation. She also adapted Philip Roth, The Dying Animal, Learning to Drive. There's a few adaptations there. And for me, one thing that is very curious is that operation that she feels that she's like the films that when I asked her why she wanted to show the Bookshop this last Wednesday at NYU Film, or Un Amor here, 2 films that she didn't write, she said, because they are the closest to me. And I am very intrigued by this idea that 2 films that don't come from her own imagination, in a way, feel closer to her in terms of main characters. So can we talk a little bit about how these characters connect with you?
I'm always very, very attracted by stories of, women and people arriving to a small community, because I think a small community is, in a way, is a very easy reflection of a big community. And the Bookshop is the story of a woman, a widow arriving to a small town and opening a little bookshop, and looks like everything is going to be fine, and it's not. And this is the story of someone, going to a small community thinking, okay, I'm going to be, life is going to be simple here. There's nature and there's, mountains and all these things. And then everything is a disaster. And I don't know why, because I never lived until now in a small community. and it's not like I'm not Nat, but I have to say, when I read the novel of Sara Mesa, who her novels have been they have been translated. For me, she's one of the most interesting voices in Spanish literature now. When I read that novel, it's not I'm reading trying to find material for a movie, but I feel a connection with Nat. It's not like, I don't particularly like big guys. Well, but sometimes sometimes you make mistakes in your life, and you keep doing it. And one of the questions I've been asked many times after showing this film is why she's not escaping from this place, why she's not moving. And sometimes you're your worst enemy, and you keep making mistakes. And I like flawed characters. I like people who make mistakes. I don't like perfection. I'm a big fan of wabi sabi. This Japanese idea of love the imperfection. And I like this character. And when I did this film, I remember Sara Mesa, the author of the book, told me Nat is the most hated character in the history of the recent Spanish literature. And I didn't understand why. And then, a bunch of people hate Nat. There is a thesis about that too.
There is a what?
About two theses, like academic thesis about why Nat is a hateful character.
What I personally think it's very interesting about both, since we're talking about the bookshop, in the bookshop it was the character's courage. In this character, I would say is how fully she is acting on her desire. So, which sometimes desire is not necessarily a pretty thing. Desire and want are different things, and I think you explore that really well.
I mean, they are not like very like beautiful things in film, because when a woman desire what she desires is fucked up. Mm-hmm. And when a guy desire what he desire is like, oh my God, this is passion. So, and I never understood that. And there is someone saying, why people hate Nat? I don't know, really. I don't hate. I love her. I see, I see, there is a Nat. What we're showing in this film is just a part of her life. This is not her life.
No, of course. It's a moment in her life lived very deeply, very fully. It could be called a mistake. It could be called a phase. There's also, I think there is desire, there's pleasure, there's pain. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain she's trying to, negotiate or navigate when she arrives, and she gets fully immersed in it, I would say. But there's also, she feels very alive to me, fully alive. And it's interesting because I just remember I just realized one thing. Yesterday I had the pleasure of, maybe I shouldn't say it, but seeing your latest film. Okay, it's a secret. But
we're not allowed to do that.
What was the other character, Isabel, that somebody said, I love that you never do what you don't want to do? That was one of the things in that film. And this is exactly, she doesn't do anything she doesn't want to do, in a way. And she goes through all these things. She's trying, and she's very brave. I think she's incredibly brave.
Bravery maybe is an overrated thing, no? Don't you think? I don't know. There were things who make me love her, and they are very small things, no? Like, why she's lying about, little things in their life. Why she lies to the neighbor about paying things, or why she does all these things. These things I've done, like why that your landlord must pay that, and you say, I told him, and then you're too shy to say it, and sometimes these little things, they were, growing, and then they grow, and then you're fucked. But do you think she's brave? You think it's, going to bed with this guy, that takes a lot of bravery. But this is someone who say, no, like how am I gonna go to bed with this guy just because the and then in her head, because she's very lonely. She doesn't really have people to talk, and then she convinced herself of something who's not pretty, and then she's double trapped. But I see in life of so many people, even in my life, not in the same style, but all these little things you do, and that's your day life. Your day life is not, you feel great because you go on a demonstration, yes, but all these other things are also part of your nature, our nature, and I, in this film, I wanted to show that.
But I also feel like I think it's very funny what happens with Peter. That character is very. I could, it's interesting because I could, I know you, so I was kind of laughing at the moment he starts talking about Neruda, and I could see that, it took some time for people to understand what you were doing with that character, and I think you were having a lot of fun with that character, and
Yeah.
and it's a comment too, it's interesting that she doesn't pick. I think it's very telling that she doesn't go with Peter, and she goes with Andreas, and I think there's a lot more mystery in that relationship. There's a lot more hurt too. I'm not saying, but I thought it was for me it was interesting to follow her in that decision, and I could follow her.
Yeah, we have, talking about Neruda, we have at the end where she was talking about the things Peter does, and also the last thing. I remember we had a take saying, and also Neruda was a rapist. But what I said, okay, that's too much. We don't need to go there.
don't need to go
Also,
there.
I think he was a rapist, but we don't need to yeah. And also,
I like what she says about the vitros. That's pretty good.
Yeah, because those were horrible.
They were horrible.
I
but
really
I think
hate
what is
them.
interesting to see, I've seen the film before, but to see it with an audience is you could see that the people were like, is
Yes!
this nice or is this ugly? Or am I supposed to laugh about, like, it wasn't so clear at the beginning. Oh, I'm beautifying this place. And it's like, no, you're not. Right? Okay.
No, but also it's. Peter for me it's hell, and I think that I know the world is full of Peters, even female Peters, but there is this thing of since she's fucking this other guy, maybe in that casual thing. That's and I think Hugo Silva is a very underrated actor,
That's great. Yeah.
but he was so good at this.
Very good. No,
Yeah.
and like the moment with the blue cheese is great. Like what
Yeah.
he does with that once he's rejected, I thought was amazing.
But also I have so many women, like, especially talking about that moment, saying I've been through this, exactly this, like, yeah.
I see that some people want to ask you questions, but there's something that for me is very interesting. Is you're very, like I was saying, you shot in Antarctica, you shot in Tokyo, you shot in many different places, in Chile, in Africa, and there's something about location and how much it adds to the story. I thought the location was incredible. I would love to understand a little bit, like the choice of the location and how, because also there's like the amount of weather you cover, because you start like kind of like warmer, but then you even have like that fog and that
Snow.
snow.
Yeah.
I just love how the location and how stark it is and how it plays a role. So how much of that was in the book? How much of that was a decision? And what is this location?
The book happens in the south of Spain. I think Sarah told me I was in the mountains of Huelva. It's not clear, when you read the book, like, it's hot, but I don't really like hot, so I was invited to see something you would love. It's the house where Victor Erice shot the Spirit of Beehive, And so I went to La Rioja, and in the way to that house was for whatever who's a cinephile. This house is a symbol of one of the best movies in the film history. It was The Spirit of the Beehive, a film by Victor Erice, who was a director who has done just 3 films. And we were in the car and we were crossing this place, and I was like, what is this place? And then we stopped, and I saw this horrible house, like completely abandoned in the mountains there, and I was like, okay, we're gonna show in this house. And then we did. I don't know why, you fall in love with actors, you fall in love with locations. You have this thing of, okay, I think at that point when we had the house, I was in the middle of writing the script with Laura Ferrero, and that house was always in our minds when we were writing the script, like, okay. And also these these big birds who were like, well, those are like, how you call it, like vultures.
Yeah, like vultures.
And it was very funny, because that house is in a place where there are other houses, and and everybody was like, in that kind of neighborhood, we can say. It's not far from Logroño. People were, no. There is this expression in Spain who's like, when you say that, it's like, you mean exactly the contrary, no? It's like, aquí se vive muy bien. It's like, here we live very well. And people were saying it, and I was like, yeah, sure, yeah. Watching these vultures every day, I'm sorry, I'm out of here. Yeah.
In fact, I also thought it was interesting that you didn't go for like the picturesque, like beautiful medieval small town. Like there was like this mix of architectures. There was something that was much more raw and less stylized, I felt. In even like the house of Andreas is like very plain. Like,
yeah,
as somebody that comes from Argentina, it's not a medieval town. Like, it's like, it does feel like a place in the countryside that is not beautified by the camera.
No. For once, I said, I've, sunsets and beautiful things, being there, done that. Let's do something else,
Great. So let's talk about casting. I mean, Laia Costa is amazing. And we all know she's a great actress. She's incredibly strong and vulnerable and present in this film. And I think Horvik is a total discovery. I would just love to know how you work with them together, how you found him. I mean, it's like the very first time when she comes back, and you can see, it's all she does is a very tiny gesture with her hand, and you see the size of her hand, the size of his hand. It's really very strong.
Yeah. Okay. In Sarah Smith's book, I mean, he is a great guy, like, he's not big. He's like, he has a mustache. He wears very thick glasses. And it's very funny because I saw Jovic in a Spanish series where he plays like a policeman, and I thought, maybe it's more interesting if the guy is not small. See, the guy is like a mountain. He's big, and I met him, and he's a character. He's from Armenia. Well, the mom is from Spain. Father Armenian. He has a whole story of this Armenian. He's also an activist for the Armenian cause. He has written a book of poetry. Not very good, but it's about the Armenia thing. But he's that kind of man. You don't know if he's, he has a rich, inside world, or he has nothing, and that's one of the things it's a projection. This guy is a projection. His guy is not this guy. like someone who fills some hole in her life. But when he says, but also he's an honest guy. When he says it could have been me or someone else, he's right.
Yeah.
And that honesty, that it's slash brutality, it's very attractive too. Not for me, but some people out there. Laia for me is, for me, she's the best actress in Spain right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she's incredible. She changes from film to film. She can do everything. I did the whole series with her, Foodie Love, for HBO, and because I met her in Berlin in a festival, she did this incredible film called Victoria. It was shot it's just one take of her in one night in Berlin, and I was mesmerized, and I met her, and I said, I want to work with you, and I wrote the series with her in my mind, and also she's I think she's one of the most she's incredibly free, and it's very, 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 it's very stimulating and creative working with her. I have to work with her again, even if I will not work in movies anymore.
Can you talk about the dance scene at the end? How was the choreography? Because that is full cinema. That was, I imagine, not in the book.
No.
Okay.
So no, the book ends in a way you don't know, and I wanted to know. You know me. I always change. I always change the endings of the books.
I love that.
I think we were scouting, and we had the script, and the script, it was the first version, ending like in the film where you think she is going to die, but it was very ambiguous. And what I really wanted to say is, okay, this was a moment this is a time in this woman's life, but maybe maybe she will not live like this again. Maybe there is some hope. Maybe she learned something, and the only possible way was through, it's like at least she regained her body. Her body belongs to herself again, and the only way I know to show that was through dance. And when we filmed this movie, I mean, Laia had a 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old was with us the whole time, and so she had to rehearse the dance. I have to say, she rehearsed like 2 weekends, but not more. And I said, at the end, we didn't do exactly the choreography, and it's like,
but it feels so free, and I love how it's shot. It's not like the virtuoso. It's like it comes and goes, and
she's clumsy.
It's perfect.
There is this thing, like this rage, this joy, this pain, and everything is
liberating.
Yeah,
I mean, it is liberating. Yeah. I have to say that, I mean, this may be something that is obvious for everybody, but watching it here with an audience, I became very aware that the way you shot the intimacy and the way you shot their bodies, and like it became very obvious that a guy with that body here is used in comedy only. Does not have a sexual life, is not allowed to be attractive, and is not taken seriously. And it reminded me of Alain Girardi, the French director, that he always likes to also cast bodies that are like working class, and basically he says how there has been this kind of domination of the sexualization of bodies, like aspirational, like like working class guys, ugly guys, big guys, or women are not allowed to be sexy on screen. And when I was seeing that here, I felt that. I felt like, wow, I have not seen one American film where somebody with this body could be this, the love interest. In fact, I heard laughter in this cinema when the first time there was a sexual scene with him, and I was like, wow, what does it say about the place where we are right now? That people are laughing, are not taking it seriously. It was interesting for me. And of course, it's a film that is very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for many reasons, and I think um, it's hard to do that, and it's hard to keep us engaged with those moments of being uncomfortable. But I felt that you thread it really well and go through all those challenges, and we care about her and we follow her. And there's this thing that the Darden brothers talk about, like the dynamic relationship with the characters, that is like, instead of liking a character all the time, the idea is that you are with the character, you distance yourself from the character, in that movement is where you really test your identification, when you can be close and also distance yourself. And I felt it very strongly here.
Yeah, I think the Dardenne brothers are the example of that, and in especially in the last film they did, it's for me they're always a very good inspiration, and that's what they do. Their characters sometimes they are not brave, or they do things who say, oh my god, and you find yourself judging them, and then you understand, or not. They are people who keep judging people. They are.
But you have a relationship that is much more human. That is much more complex. Yeah.
Yeah, but we want the fairy tale.
Yeah.
Well, not me, but some people.
Okay, I think there's somebody here that wants to ask a question. Yes.
Yeah. So I have, I think, 3 questions. I thought the out-of-body self-observation and the relationship with herself was very interesting. So I'm glad you raised that. I thought for me, the love story was between her and the dog. That was the real love story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm wondering if at the end, him finding her, and I don't know how far away she drove, that if was that real? Like, how could it logically defies logic that he could find her, although they're very powerful with smell, the dogs. But it seems to me that I was wondering, is it like a dream that she had after the dance, or was it really, was that
okay?
real?
I'll tell you the theory of my mom. My mom thinks the veterinarian freed the dog because she understood, they cannot kill that dog.
I thought about that. That makes sense, of course.
My mom is always right. Yeah, the out of body is, it's a way of helping herself to go through this, and this
right. And that happens when people have trauma, or when and she forced herself into into a situation that was unnatural. So it's normal to have an out of body like that, and to kind of be watching yourself from above. But the other thing I wanted to ask is the symbol of the women in white. I wasn't clear what that means, if that's just to portray some of the culture, because the cinematography and the location are character there too. But
it's a real tradition, and those women they do this procession with with the bread in their heads, and there is this guy guiding them, and I saw that, and I was like,
you want that?
What? You also introduced it in the TV.
Yeah. So they weren't the nuns that the woman with dementia was talking about. So that
no.
There was no symbolic. They were kind of the background of the place and the culture.
It's something is a tradition happening in this place in Malta.
Yeah.
And also there was a thing they were doing when we were there. And I'm a director who likes to incorporate things. So it wasn't in the script. Mm-hmm. But they were so fascinating. I thought, okay, we have to have them.
They were very striking, and I was kind of wondering what that meant, but maybe it was what it was, like that German guy said, right?
Hola, Isabel.
Hola.
I'm an actor, so I'm gonna do acting stuff questions. So I have 2. So the first one is, what's your approach with actors on set? Do they have like some room to improv? Because I felt like certain dialogues were very organic, and that was amazing, by the way. And if you have like pre-rehearsals, before, yeah. What's the process?
I have to say I love improv, but at the same time I have to say there was nothing improv in this film. But I love it. I love when an actor comes with a completely different idea of what I had in mind, because I love actors. And my only not secret, my only way of directing actors is really know them, really know what they need. There are actors who need, like, okay, you come here, your arm has to be at this height, and then there are actors who need very precise things, very physical precise things, and there are actors who hate that. And I think your duty as a director is understand. And the rehearsal was, as always, you want to rehearse for 2 weeks, but we have 3 days, so that was a rehearsal. And the dance, I mean, Laia rehearsed like 2 Saturdays. And it's funny, I found very funny with, with what we were talking the other day about the making of, when they know we spend 1 month every day, several hours. I have to say, I'm if an actor needs rehearsal, I will be happy to oblige. If we have money to afford that, I'd be happy. At the same time, rehearsals bore me to death. I think there is something, I mean, would you choose like really what actors, and you really have a sense of what they need? One thing is theater, what I think, rehearsals are needed. But in a film, the more you rehearse, I always have the feeling there is something missing. uh, you know
And and the next question is, I'm an actor, a theater maker from Tenerife here, based in New York, fighting for for my career and my dreams. So, do you have any piece of advice I have to follow to have an inspiring career like yours?
I wish I had, but at the same time, I think, listen, I mean, making movies is great. I mean, it's I'm in a point, I every time, and I was trying to tell my students the other day, every morning I said to myself, movies are not relevant anymore. They are not part of the conversation. I'm gonna, this is just bullshit, la la la. And then you see something and you're like, shit, man, that's good. And that, I just, no, I have a piece of, very simple. Watch, watch good films. Watch films who doesn't make you bitter, because sometimes you see, I don't want to, I want to say names, but you see a bad film made with, you know, $160 million, and you're like, fuck, like, come on, I can make like, I don't know, 50 films with that. That doesn't help you. That makes you bitter, and bitterness is the thing you have to avoid in order to create something meaningful. So just watch good things, and those good things will keep your spirit alive. And also you have to be aware. Listen, I've done everything, and every every day here I pass for a place where there was a restaurant. I used to be the worst, but waitress in history, and I thought, okay, I was a waitress there. And in Paris, I was working in a hotel, like making beds when I was in La Sorbonne. And the only thing I for me, who was like helping me, was going into La Cinémathèque and watching good films. And it's true also, I spend time, sometimes you see a very, very expensive American movie and you're like, fuck, like, come on, no? Or you see a Netflix thing, is it, are they still people working with Nicole I didn't want to say that. Sorry. No, no. Like, and also I think, if I was an actress and I see another series with Nicole Kidman playing some kind of guru or some shit, I will be very bitter. But okay, be bitter for 5 minutes, and then watch, Frances McDormand or someone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm in Isabel's graduate seminar, and we're speaking of intimacy, and that's precisely the question that I want to start from. My favorite scene was when Nat is in the car with Andreas, and she says, can I play a song?" And she starts singing the song, and then a minute later, Andreas chimes in and sings the song. And for me, that was sort of like an extra linguistic like moment of
Intimacy.
recognition. And I was wanting to ask Isabel about how that fits in the whole thread of intimacy between the two. Thank you.
I think for me, one of the things also, I mean, there is this moment, and there is also the moment when she says, you know, I have offered a job, and it's kind of, we're not talking about some kind of high academic, but it's like, you have studied that. And I think it's all this in her head, and that's why I said this thing is this Andreas is just a fantasy of her, is because she has this idea of this guy. Okay, this is a mountain guy. This is just, you know, a mountain of flesh, of meat, and it's okay. It's just pure sex. But then it's like, so this guy has a past. This guy speaks German. He knows that song. And for me, that was, you know, that moment is like when she's really fucked, because then there is like all this mystery, all this, so also he's going out with the woman in the, like, the young girl in the grocery store. That's, you know, that's one step more into her, you know, her momentary madness. Yeah, let's say.
I was interested in the scenes where she's interviewing the refugee woman. Was that also in the book, or how did you? I'm just curious about how that.
No, in the book there we know we know she was working as a translator in a big company, and then she, for reasons who are not clear, she has been kicked out. And I have to say, for me, that was a little like very, very difficult to, you know, for me, it was not, in terms of a film, it was not enough justification for her to run and to go to this little, you know, little village in the middle of nowhere. So I'm always fascinated for the translators who work in human rights, who were le tribunal de la Haye, the Hague. And I met two people who were working in the Hague, and who were, that was many years ago when I did a documentary about torture. And I remember these people were saying, you know, we can work for 2 days, and then we have to have 2 weeks out, because sometimes, especially at that time when there were two people in the trial of Milosevic, and one of them said, one of them told me one of her colleagues had committed suicide because it was too much to bear. And that, you know, these people were always in my head. And then I met this woman, she's Nora. She's from Burkina Faso, and this woman has what she's saying. It's the truth. It's what happened to her family, and also there is this scar in her face, because now she's a refugee in France, because she was working in the film industry in Burkina Faso, and this director tried to rape her, and then she resisted, and he cut her face. And I met her, and I was so impressed by her. And also I'm helping her now to do a documentary. And, you know, she came and she met Laia, and we, for me, when you have been in contact with all these stories, there is a moment also, you know, you're very conscious, and you know that you're very conscious, you're very aware the weight of the words. And also the weight of the words is something. And Simone Weil, it's also she's very obsessed with Simone Weil because Simone Weil was also very obsessed about the weight of words and how a word can change your your interpretation of something. And but she's telling the story of her family.
Can you talk a little bit? I think it's very moving the moment where the woman from Burkina Faso hugs her.
Yeah, because also this is the irony. I mean, this woman has been through the worst, and she has to be the one who. But also Nat knows that. Nat is aware of how fucking stupid it is and how twisted, no? And but also that happens, and that happens
For me,
a lot.
The person that went through everything is
Yeah.
having to
Yeah.
comfort the person that is only a witness.
But I thought what was fascinating about that in particular was, you know, the juxtaposition of Andreas's pain for his mother, but his absolute withholding of any kind of comfort, and in contrast with this woman who was able to give her that. I mean, that parallel was amazing.
Yeah, it's true because Jovic also has, as a person, has this thing like he, I mean, you know, the great grandfathers they have to leave Armenia, but he's always carrying this with his the same attitude he has, and we have endless discussions about it, like because I understood, but at this, and I use it. I have to say I use it for the film because I think it was great. But in the real life, we had like, you know, when you finish shooting and you talk with the actors until you say, oh my God, I have to wake up at 5, and he keeps talking. He has this thing. For him, he was very easy to do that. Like it was his favorite moment in the film. Like, and I remember he rehearsed this thing forever. When he was doing something else and he had to come, he sent me like thousands of videos of this thing with like different levels of rage, and I was like, Jovic, calm, let's calm here. We don't need to go there. That's but for him was very important. And I have to say, I didn't know all that. I knew, you know, he was half Armenian, but I didn't know that. But I have to say, I'm very lucky with these things, no? And yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you creatively for a couple of things in your films. First, for your love of imperfection, that that give up a pause to all of us to be more humans. And in this film, also for letting us breathe at the end, bringing the dog back.
I know, yeah. We have to sell the film in Japan, you know, like we need that.
So we can breathe and live with something positive and some feel good moment. But I would like you to go deeper into a couple of things that you have mentioned. So one is the character of Peter. It's Peter, right?
Hugo Silva, Peter.
Exactly. That you said for you that character is hell, which I can understand. But I would like you to elaborate on that because from the outside, it might look that he was like the easy person to choose if you want to have a regular life. And instead she chose somebody that was really tough, but made her feel detached. But also there is a little thing over there that I didn't get about when the neighbor comes and she asks, why did you not let me bring Andrea? What do you have with Andrea? And she mentions that he went to fix
and
her
she's
leg.
pregnant with twins.
Exactly. So
Ooh, my mom is convinced he's the father of those horrible kids. Yeah.
Okay.
And the new one, I don't know. About being
your mom vision is enough for me if you want.
Yeah. And about what's the easy thing. But if you know my films, you know I will never go for easy, no? Because, you know, this is kind of boring. We you know, the guy, the neighbor is there, and you know he has cheese and nothing wrong with cheese. But I don't know, like, and also, Hugo Silva's he was kind of a sex symbol in Spain. So for me, it was funny also, no, the fact, like he's there and he's not getting the girl. So,
but why is he hell for you?
because these people who tell you also you're not doing, why you're paying this when I can do it? Like, well, it's not a world. These people who are criticizing, but this aggressive, passive aggressive thing, I just can't stand these people.
And
Like, I can't. Like, no. And for me, that's all. I joked, is saying, for me, these people are hell. But also, it's people that make your life like miserable, and they are miserable, and they want to fuck you up with a smile and saying, like, I can do this for you, and why you didn't, and also, yeah, I know everything, but just tell me the details. Like, come on.
The overprotective
Overprotective with her, of course. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for join us tonight. We continue tomorrow. Starting at 11:30 with the first screening, and then we have 2 more screenings. Isabel is going to be here, and I hope that you come join us. And Julia is going to be here too. Everybody's going to be here, so please come. Thank you so much.